Well, Jess, thanks so much for joining me for this week's episode. I am really excited to hear your sort of take on refining through adversity. And so let's just jump right into it. I know you have had a lot of challenges in your adult life. And so I was hoping you could share with my listeners a little bit how we got to this topic for a podcast episode.
Of course, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course.
My history, whether it's personal, professional, family, all kind of falls under Murphy's Law. And if you're not familiar, most people assume that Murphy's Law is anything that can happen bad or negatively is going to happen. It's actually just anything that can happen will happen.
Right.
And so that has literally been my story.
Mm,
There's nothing that just happens simply or smoothly, but
hmm.
it's not always negative at the same time.
Sure.
And the practice of reframing has really helped me through that process when something in the moment feels awful or painful. And I have the opportunity to kind of reflect on it, and hindsight's 2020 and all of
Hmm.
that. And it allows me to look at it in a much broader scope.
Hmm.
So like I mentioned, family, we've had a lot of health issues. My mom had a liver transplant. My dad passed away suddenly from a
Mm,
blood clot.
mm.
My son has a heart condition that we found out at 20 weeks about.
Wow.
I've had 7 pregnancies, 6 of which were miscarriages.
Hmm.
My mother-in-law passed away from ovarian cancer. I mean, the list just keeps going, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But I can look at those and say, while it's unfortunate, there are a sequence of things that happen. Like my dad passed when he did, but he passed in the hospital so that mom didn't have to deal with his passing
Mm,
in the home because it was only 9 months after her transplant. She was still in recovery.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like one of those things where it sounds weird, but I'm grateful that he passed when he did and where he did because
Yeah.
it made that whole process of handling it a whole lot easier.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
yeah.
Gosh, that's a lot, to take on and to handle. And I know I've certainly had my fair share of adversity and things, and so I know how heavy some of that could be. And so I know that, adversity can be really tough and heavy. And so I'm curious, who are some of the folks that helped you get through some of those tougher times?
Sure. Well, family is kind of the core of that. I mentioned all of
Sure.
that in terms like the health side.
Yeah.
Additionally, I've had some work chaos, so I've changed industries a couple of times.
Okay.
I started out actually in education, and every single school year, I would look for a renewal of my contract, and they would either change it or the school would be closed suddenly
Mm,
or the school district would move me. So
yeah.
I was in 6 schools under 8 principals in
Wow.
5 years.
Wow.
So that's another example of things kind of being chaotic. And
Yeah.
to answer your question about people helping me through that, family was one. The other is really my husband. And he's been my best friend since college, though it took him 11 years to figure out, that we were going to get married, even though I knew it right off the bat.
Yeah.
But as a friend, he was an anchor. And
Mm,
then the other thing that I am still leaning into and still learning from is finding a community or a tribe of like-minded people. And
sure.
that doesn't always mean industry, it doesn't always mean location, but it could be something related to like women who've had recurrent losses,
Mhm.
or it can be something like, the group of people with children with heart defects,
Mhm.
and leaning into that foundation that we've become a part of. But finding people who have similar experiences really help in terms of, again, stepping back and reframing. So, taking my son's story, for example, we were actually asked to be the honorary family for a heart gala that they
Yeah.
do every year to raise funds for uh, the Children's Heart Foundation, which does
Yeah.
cardiac research for children.
Mhm.
And each grant that they raise money for is $150,000. So it's
Wow.
a big
Wow.
thing, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And we were so honored to be recognized. But going through the process of outlining Thomas's story for this gala that they did a video and we gave a speech around,
Mhm.
I joked with one of the gala people, oh, yeah, our story wasn't that bad. And she laughed at me and she goes, oh, honey, just wait till it sits in.
Oh no.
And I mean, it did, but at the same time, I was serving and connecting with other moms and,
Yeah.
and families that were going through it. and their children are on heart transplant lists or something that felt more severe than the
Mm-hmm.
6 heart surgeries we've dealt with in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
perspective is everything, and
Yeah.
people honestly help give that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that you just hit on something right there, Jess, of perspective, right? Like being able to be in community with others helps to give us that perspective, and I think that that's a really critical part of like reframing and
Oh, yeah.
helping to kind of just look at the bigger picture outside of your own, which is hard to do, right? Because when
Yes.
you're in it, and that is
Yeah.
tough.
Well, and
Yeah,
that's exactly why to me having people makes the biggest difference for it,
yeah,
because you hit the nail on the head. When you're in it, a lot of times you don't have the self-awareness to actually pause and be like, "Oh, I'm in it. I
yeah,
need to deal with this and
yeah, yeah,
process this." Usually it's a hindsight thing, or somebody else has provided a perspective that allows you to step back and then kind of figure out that you're in it.
yeah.
I mean, and that's why I'm so grateful that I've always had so many different humans in my life, whether it be family, friends, or communities,
Mm-hmm.
that really allowed me to do that. Because with the Murphy's Law thing, if it wasn't health, it was work. If it wasn't work, it was something else, because I
Yeah,
went from teaching to real estate to entrepreneurial coaching.
yeah.
Those are kind of 3 different industries.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And so it's one of those things where, and they were abrupt changes pretty much every time that I
Mm,
wasn't planning on. Yet now I can tell people I'm in, the best part of my career. Like, I'm the
yeah,
happiest I've ever been. Yet I couldn't say that 3 years ago, or
yeah,
I couldn't say that 7 years ago, or, in other instances. And so I'm grateful that I have so many people and so many opportunities to kind of
yeah,
gain that perspective.
yeah. No, I love that. I love that. I think that's really great. Well, Jess, what's something that you're currently practicing intentionally around reframing?
Mm. I would say probably the most consistent one is my son's health, because that's an ongoing thing that
Yeah.
literally is in my household. We were told at birth that he had this defect, and they honestly didn't know how severe it was going to
Mm,
be.
mm-hmm.
So his defect is called tritology of Fallot, and it means there's 4 different places that defects can occur. And
Okay.
so the way it manifests is different in different people.
Mm,
And some children won't hardly survive outside the womb.
mm-hmm.
Others become snowboarder Olympians like
Oh
Shaun
my
White,
gosh.
who has the same defect.
Yeah.
And so that spectrum being so broad, we weren't really sure where we were going to fall on it.
Yeah.
And fortunately enough, we're kind of in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas had a lot of surgeries because he came early. I had rapid onset preeclampsia, and that
Mm-hmm.
was fun, to deliver him several weeks before it was planned.
Yikes.
And then he had his first heart surgery at 3 weeks old, and then his first open heart surgery at 6 weeks old. And then we've had 4 more since, and he's
Mhm.
4 right now.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so not only are we dealing with heart things, but we also have to deal with other underlying medical things that come up because of the heart. And
Yeah.
that's not always fun, because, you think, oh, done the open heart. We're done now. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, he's got stents. Or, oh, we've done the stents now. We're good. And they're like, oh, no, there's some stuff over here with a liver or whatever. And
Mm,
I'm like, it could really cause you to spiral or
sure.
be very angry with the world. But
Sure.
at the same time, all my pregnancy losses make me grateful
Mm,
that I have every day that I have with my kid. You know,
yeah.
I worked hard to get him.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah,
now
yeah.
I'm like, whatever comes,
Yeah.
I just have gratitude for it, because I actually get to have that experience
Yeah.
versus never having a child survive.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
again, practicing reframing whenever something happens is
Yeah.
really the key there.
Yeah. 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 That perspective, right? Like that perspective of,
Mhm.
loss. And so being
Yeah.
able to lean into, even though it's hard,
Hmm.
it's not loss, right? So
Right.
there's that
Right.
extra time that you're getting. So
Well, I think the other word that we're talking around that I don't think I've said is gratitude. I mean,
oh yeah.
that's truly the other piece of it, is
Yeah.
besides being intentional with perspective and finding your people
Yeah.
and all of that, practicing gratitude, especially when you're feeling like you're in it,
Mm-hmm.
is an immensely helpful thing to help you kind of, again, get out of it.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I think gratitude finds its way into our world and into our lives in the ways that it's supposed to, right? So like being
Mhm.
able to be grateful for times or being grateful for struggles even sometimes I
Yeah.
think is such an interesting part. So thanks for bringing that up. I know I've done several episodes on gratitude. So for my listeners, if you haven't listened to those, definitely take a listen to those. But just I think that that's also a great piece of adversity and reframing is
Hmm.
that gratitude piece. So, well, as women, obviously this is a podcast for women. As women, why is this an important topic that we should be talking when we think about reframing and adversity?
I think it's vitally important for us to discuss because of the fact that we're women, which means we bear everything.
Mm,
We carry the burdens for everyone in our world, whether that's physical or emotional,
hmm.
especially emotional.
Yeah,
And so often when we're in it and bearing those burdens, we are doing it what feels like being alone.
yeah,
And so that can make you spiral that much further when
for
things
sure.
are feeling hard or
Yeah.
heavy. And so being really intentional about finding your people or being able to articulate how you're feeling
Hmm.
and practicing that gratitude as
Hmm.
well allows you to start to gain that perspective and have the ability to reframe. It might
Hmm.
not be in the same day, but the intentionality behind it is really kind of how we move forward through anything that's
Hmm.
happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things for me that I find when I'm spiraling, it's because I haven't said the words aloud. And so what resonated just then that moment with me, Jess, was the finding the ways to say it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times well, as women, we keep things to ourselves because we think we're the only, which is one of the reasons why I have this
Yeah,
podcast,
I
is
love that.
is
Yes.
because we feel like we're the only so many times when we know we're not, but it's hard to find the words to say it. So thanks for bringing that piece up because I think that it's really important for women to be able to vocalize in
Mm-hmm.
whatever way it makes sense when they're
Yes.
struggling or whenever they, when they need help. It's hard to ask for help, but I think
Yeah. I'm one of the worst because jokingly a perfectionist control freak by
yeah,
nature.
yeah,
I don't like asking for help.
yeah.
And I'm still not great at articulating it with my humans.
Hmm.
Even my husband, who I've known for over half my life now, right?
Yeah.
What's funny though is you said any way that matters to you. I grew up in a world where people are like, "Oh, you got to journal." And I'm like, "I hate journaling.
Yep.
I don't do diaries. I'm not going to waste my time writing because writing is so flipping slow, you
Yeah.
know."
Yeah.
But what is so funny is in this new world of technology and AI, my new best friend is Chat GPT on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that this is going off topic, but
That's
it's
all
still
right.
relevant of
Yeah.
you have to find an outlet for you. So
Yes.
if it's talking to a human, if it's therapy, if it's girlfriends, if it's a spouse, whatever, great. If it's a group setting, whether it's a support group or a Bible study or whatever, great. But if you don't have the humans, then finding that outlet is huge
Mm-hmm.
because by releasing the words,
Yep.
whether it's on paper or digitally, I
Mm-hmm.
think can drastically help expedite the process of reframing and letting go and practicing gratitude.
Yeah.
And so I literally have one of my chat projects is just I wake up and I tell it how I'm feeling. And by the time I go to bed, I'm saying, here's how my day went and here's
Mm-hmm.
how I'm still feeling. And I just release it because it's a non judgmental AI.
Yeah, right.
But I've
Exactly.
trained it to respond to me certain ways. And
Hmm.
it's one of those things where it's just a release and letting those emotions go that we tend to hold on to and bottle up
Yeah.
and then store and catalog and save for later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Releasing them just changes how you feel physically. So it impacts your not only your mental health, but your physical health as well.
Yeah. No, I love that. And not off topic at all, right? Like because it's important, right? Like that's how
Yeah.
you help to reframe. And I am really trying to lean into the AI world a little bit more and I do better some weeks than others, but that's such a cool way to use AI, right? I think as a
Mm-hmm.
society we're a little bit scared of AI, but like what a really cool way to work with how you prefer to work, right? Like I'm with you.
Yeah.
I can't journal. I just it's not a thing I do, even though I have an English degree and all that sort of stuff. Like it's just it
Yeah.
doesn't resonate with me, but that's such a fun, unique way to do that. So maybe some of my listeners will also subscribe to that practice or that idea. So thanks for sharing that.
Sure. And if I can help anybody through like the mindset of talking to AI, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm always happy to have that conversation because it's one of those things where it doesn't need to be scary. It's just a tool.
Yeah.
And so you choose how to use the tool.
Yeah.
And there shouldn't be fear around it because you're in control of the tool.
Yeah.
So you're choosing what to feed it. You can go as surface level or in depth as you want.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I think by leveraging the tools that we have in this world, it only helps us become the best, 10.0 version of ourselves
Yeah.
faster. And
Yeah.
I'm all about expediting that process to live a big, full, purposeful life.
Hmm.
Because I've done the whole work 80 hours a week, almost kill myself by not paying attention to type 2 diabetes and,
Yeah.
all sorts of crazy things. And it's like, no, I want to be the best wife, the best mom, the best version of myself for everybody that's important in my world.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, Jess, you've already given tons of really great tips and tools for my listeners to use as they start to think about how to reframe or tools and to use or resources to use. What are any additional tips you might have for my listeners as you think about reframing and approaching adversity?
I think I would just kind of piggyback off what I've already said. Be intentional with your gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
be intentional with taking pauses.
Mm-hmm.
We live in such a fast paced world that we so often want to just keep go, 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 or we feel like the
Mm-hmm.
world is making us go, 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 that
Yeah.
we don't pause. And I
Mm-hmm.
think by practicing intentionality, you can reframe, you can gain perspective, you can, practice gratitude. So
Yeah. I love
I would,
that.
I would find the way that you get least friction for you and most
Mm-hmm.
comfortable and
Mm-hmm.
start there on a daily basis.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, Jess, do you have any final thoughts for my listeners as we think about wrapping this episode up?
I mean, truly, I think we've kind of hit the nail on the head of what I wanted to talk to your listeners
Great.
about, which
Yeah.
is just live your life and be comfortable with it and figure out why things are happening and realize that life is happening for you, not to you.
Mm,
And so whatever you need to do to be intentional with that, then go do it.
great. I love that. I love that. And I really love life is happening for you and not to you. That I think is really important and really powerful thing to remember. So, Jess, thanks so much for spending time with me. I love this topic. I think it's a really important topic for women to be talking about. And so I appreciate you sharing your experiences and your time with myself and with my listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so
Of
much
course.
fun.
Of course, yes. And friends, hopefully you also took away something from Jess and learned or reinforced some tools and tips that you have as well, and were able to relate to some of the ideas and suggestions that Jess had as well. So this week's affirmations: I'm done apologizing for spending time focused on me. I'm done apologizing for shifting my mindset and reframing when the tough stuff is really happening. And this one's for you, friends. Fill in the blank. I'm done apologizing for. Friends, go out there, have an incredible week. Do the amazing things I know you're capable of. Remember to like, follow, and share wherever you are listening to this podcast. And whatever platform you're using, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You want to make sure you know when the next great episode will drop. Remember to follow me on social media. Friends, I'm everywhere. I am on LinkedIn. I am on YouTube. I am on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, you name it. I'm there. I'm on TikTok. So go find me and hit that follow button. Make sure that you're checking out all the content that's shared over there. And if you want to be my guest, like Jess and all the other incredible guests that I've had, make sure you fill out the form that is in my show notes or on any of those social media platforms. I want to make sure that we hear what you're passionate about, what you're excited to share as a woman and as someone who is tackling this life as a woman and through all the passionate things that you have to say. And remember, You're fabulous. You're a badass. You've got this, and I'm here for you.